I wanted to start by commenting on today's first reading from the book of Genesis. We have the continuation of the act of creation, how God created the world. And notice how it mentions that when God created human beings, he created them male and female, and he told them to multiply and to propagate. So he made them male and female. What a lot of people don't realize is that this biblical passage, this Bible passage that we just heard, is being censored. In other words, there will come a time very soon where you will not be able to read this in public or to put it on the internet. It's already being censored in some places because it only refers to two genders, male and female. Now, if you're politically correct, you would know that there's 52 or 54 different genders out there. I can't remember. I read this some time ago. Obviously, I'm not politically correct because I can't remember how many official genders there are out there. But this is the reality that we are living in. And common sense indicates that you need a male and a female to procreate. And, you know, this gender ideology that children are being taught, and it's being forced upon them. It's not so much that children think that they're a different gender. Sometimes that does happen. And it especially happens when there's a broken family, or there's there isn't a positive father figure example. So a male child might associate himself with the mother figure, with the female figure, and believe that he's female. But it's a distorted view of reality. And I mentioned that the extreme of this is now many children in various places are claiming to be cats or dogs. And one teacher in the US, I mentioned this before, was fired from her job because she refused to meow in order to address one of the particular pupils that she had in her class, who identified as a cat. So this is how crazy it's becoming. So young children today are encouraged to continue with this transitioning from one gender to another gender by teachers, by medical professionals also. And now they're saying that, well, these things have to be kept secret from their parents. In other words, their parents aren't allowed to know. And these young children are encouraged to change their gender, not just in their mind, but physically. In other words, to have operations and to have hormonal treatments and all these things. And they don't ever talk about the side effects of all these things, the negative side effects. First of all, they're going to be sterilized. Many of them won't be able to be sexually active also, and they have to be on drugs to deal with the side effects of all this stuff. Why are doctors promoting this? Why are scientists promoting this? Did that ever occur to you? Did you ever ask that question? You know, ultimately, we could say that Satan is behind it because God is the one who created the world to be the way that it is. And when we think rightly, we accept the world as it is. But when we want to make ourselves to be God, we believe that we can change human nature, that we can change human beings. And this is what's happening. So it's really playing God. Oh, I can do whatever I want. I can be whatever I want to be. I can be an elephant if I want to be an elephant. And scientists and medical experts, you know, they're very much interested in doing these operations because it's a step in advancement in medical technology. Oh, we can change a male into a female and a female into a male. Well, not perfectly, but at least we can make them look like that. Now, if you think about it, when people entertain these false ideas, these falsehoods, in other words, they're living in a delusional world. It goes against common sense. But, you know, here's the ironic thing about this whole thing is that, you know, let's say that a female believes that they're a male. Well, what does that mean? What does it mean when a female believes that they're a male? In other words, when they think they're a male, they have an image of what a male is in their mind. And when they undergo these operations, they want to have a male image. a male body. But if gender is based on what you think it is, then what does the body have to do with it? It has nothing to do with it. You know, traditionally when a child was born, the doctors would say to the waiting father, "Oh, you have a son, or you have a daughter." But now it's a big question mark. Well, we don't know what you have. We'll have to wait until your child grows up and decides for himself which one of the 54 genders he decides to be. So, if we think about this, it's ridiculous. Of course it's ridiculous. But, you know, here's the thing. This is what doctors and scientists today are doing. And if you go against this politically correct narrative, you are a bad person. You are not accepting of others. You are somehow wicked and evil. They twist things around. And it's very, very unfortunate. So, you know, the reality is, you know, you've probably heard, you know, trust the science. Trust the scientists. Really? So trust the science, trust the scientists. Oh, well, there might be wrong in some things, but in not everything. Really? If you make a mistake in one area pertaining to reality, you're very likely to make mistakes in many other areas. And so you're being taught to trust the science. Trust the scientists. They know there's 54 genders out there. That's the reality. In other words, do away with common sense. Believe what is foolish. Believe whatever you want. But don't live in reality. Don't live in the reality that God created for you, because then you must be a Christian and you must be evil then because you don't accept all those 54 genders. You know, it's interesting how we see all these prominent scientists and doctors and personalities just going along with the narrative. And we have very few individuals, one of them is Jordan Peterson, who dares to speak out against this false narrative. And he's persecuted, and now they're threatening to take away his license. This is the reality. And most people just go along with the false science and the false scientists, and they believe that everything is just okay no matter what they say. Just trust the science. Trust the science. And you know, recently there was the World Economic Forum, and you know, all the world leaders went there. You know, it's interesting, it wasn't really in the mainstream media. Do you know what the conclusions, the proposals were from the World Economic Forum? Do you know these things? It would be good for you to know. In other words, there are reporters, I mentioned LifeSite News, there's Rebel News, there's other alternative news sources out there that really report on what's going on. And you know, if you go to the World Economic website, it has all kinds of things there that seem like really, really good. But in reality, it's very, very evil. But most people can't recognize that because they don't know how to think for themselves. They just trust the science and the scientists. One of the speakers, prominent speakers for the World Economic Forum is Yuval Harari. He's a historian. He's written some books. And he's a very, very great intellectual. And, you know, he says that there is no God. There is no God. Belief in Jesus is a myth, he says. And he says that human beings are hackable beings. In other words, in the same way that someone can hack your computer and gain all the information they want from your computer, all your personal information, he's saying that we can do that to human beings. So they obviously have to inject something into us to be able to do that, something that can monitor us, something that can censor us, some sort of nanoparticles. They have the technology for that now. But he also says that, you know, personal decisions, they're a thing of the past. In other words, he doesn't believe in free will. He believes that we are just evolved beings. We're not created, we just evolved. And so all our thought processes is just chemical processes taking place. So we don't really have free will. It's just your chemical processes are different from mine, and that's why I might choose something different. But now he's saying, well, we have the ability now to make sure or to guarantee that everyone will choose the right thing. He says this free will is a thing of the past. And he also makes the proud claim that they are like gods because they now have the ability to create human beings the way they want to. In other words, they believe in evolutionary theory, and they believe that with their technology now they can guide the evolutionary process. And they believe that technology is greater than the human mind. And so we need to incorporate technology with the human being, with the human biome. In other words, transgenderism. In other words, to make a human being to be a composite of a biological being and a computer technology. And they're already experimenting on this. You've probably heard about it, even Elon Musk. So this is Yuval Harari, one of the key spokesmen for the World Economic Forum. So this World Economic Forum, all the world leaders come together, and it's by, Klaus Schwab. He's the head of the World Economic Forum. In other words, he's the one who calls the shots. People don't realize this. There's a move for a one world government. And all these government leaders, they're all on board, most of them. Some of them who weren't on board, like in Africa, there were various presidents or prime ministers who refused to go along with the COVID narrative, and they refused to, sign on for all these vaccines. They died mysteriously. So there is a one world government agenda in place. They want to control us completely. They want to monitor us, everything that we do. Everything that we think, how we feel. They want to be able to do all these things. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's a fact. You can go, they have an official website, World Economic Forum, look it up. It's got tons and tons of information. A lot of it looks really good. They make the proposal, you will own nothing and you will be happy. They will have complete control of our lives. And of course, they will suppress religion. There's speculation, Klaus Schwab, the head of the World Economic Forum, he's getting old. Who's going to replace him? The speculation is that it's going to be Yuval Harari. Now, who is this Yuval Harari? I recently had a discussion with a friend of mine about the Antichrist. And, the Antichrist, when he appears on the scene, he will bring order out of disorder. He will propose a solution to everyone's problems, and people will just sign on. Sure, yeah, let's do it. But he will bring about the greatest persecution of Christians ever known. But some of the prophecies pertaining to the coming of the Antichrist say that he will be extremely intelligent. Extremely intelligent. Now, I'm not saying that Yuval Harari is going to be this individual. But recently I did some research on him. And when he was 3 years old, he taught himself how to read when he was 3 years old. Not that he was taught to read when he was 3 years old. No, he taught himself to read when he was 3 years old. And he believes that he is going to be like a god who can control the human biome, the human body, and the genetics of the human body, and to create a new form of humanity. He says, in the future, Homo sapiens will be a thing of the past because there will be a new creation, that he will be God who creates a new mankind. This is what this man is claiming. And people don't take note. Oh, well, it's just the World Economic Forum. Oh, maybe it's just a conspiracy theory. No, it's not. This is the reality. And this is the ultimate of Satan, to imitate God. God creates the world, and man wants to recreate the world in his image, not in God's image. but according to their own vision of things. And that's why there's 54 genders and all this nonsense. So yeah, go on. Trust the science. Trust the scientists. No. In today's gospel reading, our Lord, he's questioned as to why his disciples do not wash their hands. And our Lord points out that, these Jewish leaders, they make into like dogma or precepts, human precepts. They make them into like religious dogma. And our Lord is saying, no, that's not right. Now, we all know washing our hands before meals is a good thing, especially in this age of viruses, right? We wash our hands. So our Lord is not saying that these practices are bad. What he's saying is you cannot play God and make into religious dogma things that are part of human tradition or human prudence. There's a difference between the two. And it's important that we realize this. So don't play God. It's really the same message. Now, how does this apply to us? Well, yeah, sometimes we act the same way. We neglect certain aspects of God's law, and we put human things superior to that or on equal footing. And we often point an accusatory finger at those who are not doing things the way we want them to do it. We're playing God again. And that's wrong. So the commandments of God are to love our neighbor as ourselves, not to put them down, not to call them names, to treat them with respect, to treat them as our equals, or even better than ourselves. In other words, we need to be humble. And as I mentioned before, humility is the foundation for all the virtues. If we lack humility, we lack all the other virtues, or we are deficient in them. We need to be humble. We need to trust in God, not in these false scientists and this false science.